So my name is Ansgar Koene. I am the Global AI Ethics and Regulatory Leader at EY, which is a function that sits within the Global Public Policy team, working very closely also with our Global Innovations team to really support how we do our internal AI governance, working also with the client-facing teams in the technology consulting and in the assurance side to support them understand what are the discussions, the issues that are currently in debate around ethics of AI, and also the direction of motion within the policy debate and the regulatory space. And obviously, as part of the public policy team, also engaging with policymakers to help them understand how we and the industry more generally are actually using AI. So what are the practical issues that really are live within this space? So the AI assurance ecosystem is actually quite young. It is fairly immature actually. One of the things that is very much missing is a clear external accredited kind of base of this is what we're going to provide the assurance against. What we're seeing at the moment primarily is cases where people from our consulting teams are being asked by companies to say, actually it's more, could you help us assess whether we are compliant with our own guidelines? You know, we've said publicly that we want to be following these principles, etc. How are we doing on this? So this is more an internal kind of process. But as we're seeing new legislation coming out, not just things like AI Act, directly AI legislation, but also other legislation that implicitly is touching on AI, because the reality is that the way in which these things are done is through AI. As this legislation comes in, there's going to be more of a need also for that kind of third-party assessment that is going to help show to the regulator that you are compliant. But again, there's often, at the moment still, a lack of certainty as to what exactly is it that the legislator is looking for in this. And so we're still in discussions around this, and also heavily engaging with standards development bodies such as the BSI, the British Standards Institute, but also ISO, Sensenelec, and IEEE to identify and support the development of these particular standards to come out to do work against. And so one big thing that we've recently started, for instance, is with the Standards Council of Canada to engage on a project of piloting a certification against the new draft ISO 42001 AI Management Systems standard. So collaboration in this space is really essential, and it's essential for a number of reasons. So we need, on the one hand, collaboration between people with different kinds of expertise. We need the computer science, data science expertise regarding how the technology itself is actually built, but we need the subject matter expertise. If you're using a system in the medical space, or if you're using it in automotive space, you need different kinds of subject matter expertise to understand what are the actual issues. But we also need the engagement from people in academia and from people from civil society, because the whole point of a lot of this is to be able to provide trustworthiness, to provide a clear signal that the kind of certifications that are happening is actually something that end users, citizens can have trust in. And the only way you're going to get that is if you also have participation by those parties that aren't seen as having a intrinsic motivation for minimizing requirements or something along those lines, as having been part of the process. And also, from the point of view, especially of a global functioning organization like EY, there is a strong need for global collaboration in this space, because these technologies inherently work best if they can work cross-border. If the efforts that you've put in to build an AI system can then be deployed at a broad enough space. But in order for that to really work, we need international standards, or at least we need a high level of coherence between the ways in which different standards and regulations work. Even if perhaps the threshold of acceptable might be different in different countries for different factors, the core basis of what you're doing the assessment against should be the same so that we all know what it is that we're supposed to be doing.